was installing some new intake boots and secondary jets in the carburetors, and I figured, well, I've got this much access to the bike with the carburetors off of it, I may as well go through and double check the ignition timing. So there's three things we have to do in order to set the ignition timing on this bike. The first being that we have to set the cam chain tensioner. The second is that we need to adjust the valve clearances by taking off these tappet covers and using feeler gauges to do so. And the last thing is setting up a timing light on our points here and setting the points so that we get fire exactly when we want it. So since I've got this much access, I figured let's give this a shot, and it'll be useful for me when I need to come back to this, because you're supposed to do this like every 1,500 miles. Let's get to it. So in order to do this cam chain adjustment, we're going to need access to the rotor here. There's a 14mm nut that we're going to be able to spin the engine. We always want to be spinning it counterclockwise, which is going to be forward for the engine. I've removed the spark plugs so that we're able to freely spin this around without building up compression inside of it. And we can see there's a couple marks on here. This is the index mark right there. That's as good of a pointer as I have within my reach. Right there, that's our index mark. There's a couple marks on this rotor. LT is left top, LF is left fire. So you can see it actually fires a little bit before it gets to the top, because remember it's spinning this way. On the other side we have T for top and F for fire. So those are for the right. For the cam chain adjustment, we actually need an additional spot. It's not marked on this, I just marked it. Basically I used a punch. You need to find the spot between LT and T, 90 degrees after left top. So I just found I used a 90-degree ruler thing, and then I used a punch and marked it, so it's actually sitting at that spot right now. What we need to do for the cam chain adjustment, and this is your cam chain tensioner right here. Basically, it's if you've got a cam chain, so the cam chain is moving up and down in the engine like this. All right, if you've got a loose chain, it's going to make a bunch of racket, and it's not going to be any good. So what you do is push on that chain. So you kind of change it to look like that, and that's how you build the tension in it. And that needs to be set at a certain spot, and that is 90 degrees after the left top on the compression stroke. So to find the compression stroke, what we'll do is put our finger over the spark plug hole, turn the engine until we find that we're on the compression stroke, and you'll feel it because pressure will start to build up in here. Get to the top and go 90 degrees past, set it. We'll take the 12mm the lock nut, loosen that, and then back the adjustment nut off. The spring will pop in, and then we'll just tighten it back up. And that's the entire cam chain adjustment, so let's do that. All right, so we'll take my 14mm socket. Ideally, you'd have a breaker bar for this, but I can't. I have a 1/2-inch breaker bar, and I can't find my 1/2-inch to 3/8. So I'm gonna hold my finger over the spark plug and keep moving the rotor until I feel compression. The reason you'd want a breaker bar, if you see how it snaps sometimes, you have more control. All right, so now I'm getting pressure. You can hear it. So we want to get to LT, and then, oh jeez. Okay, that's why you want the breaker bar. All right, we want to get to 90 degrees after. So that's that little punch mark that I made. Okay, that's it right there. All right, so it's not moving. I'll come in and loosen my 12, and then I don't think you'll hear a snap. If this thing was way out of whack, you'd hear a snap. The thing is, it's got like 14 miles on it on this adjustment, so it shouldn't be out. But you might hear a snap if it's way out. So at this point, that spring is loaded all the way in. So now we'll bring the 10mm back down, bring that in and tighten it. And then use the 12mm to lock that in place. And that tensioner shouldn't need any attention for a while. That's the easiest step of all of them. Cam chain tension has been set. Now for a trickier one, the valves. So now it's time to set the valve clearance, and I'm actually really glad I'm doing this because I just found two things that I did incorrectly the first time I did this. First thing you're gonna have to do, we need to find the exact top of the compression stroke on the left side cylinder. So we're going to be doing the intake here and the exhaust here. And one of the first mistakes I found that I made was that I had originally set the tolerance on the exhaust to 3 thousandths, and book says it should be 4 thousandths. I had used the 250 instead of the 350. The intake side is 2 thousandths. So one of the trickier parts of doing this is actually finding a way to get exactly on left top and keep it there. I've seen a whole bunch of different ways to try to do this, and basically I just took the shifter lever, got it on there, and wedged this piece in here. Basically because this rotor is going to keep trying to push forward. If this wasn't here, it would roll to about here and find a resting spot. So how we're actually going to adjust the valves is this screw here is going to be on the intake and this one for the exhaust. And you can see the tappet inside of there on the rocker. And if I go in and out, hopefully you can see that, the arm is going to move up and down. And what we want is 2 thousandths between there. We want to rest it at 2 thousandths. So you can set it loose or you can set it tight. Loose is generally going to be better because loose will make a bunch of noise. Tight, you can end up breaking stuff. And the reason that the intake has a tighter tolerance than the exhaust is that the exhaust, due to there being more heat on that side, the metal on the valve is actually going to expand more. So you want more play on that side. So I'm going to take my feeler gauge. I loosened this lock nut here. This is a 12 millimeter, and now I'm just moving it with the standard screwdriver. I'm going to put my 3 thousandths under there. So we're going to do I'm going to do a tight 3, which should be a loose 2, and that's where I want it. So we could see I've got my 3 thousandths under there, and I want to get it. If I go too tight, I can't pull it out. If I go too loose, it'll come right out. So I want to find that spot right where I'm just kind of able to pull it out. That's pretty tight. So this is always the tricky part, is where is it? Okay. Knocking down the lock nut without moving the screwdriver. And we'll see, now that I've got it locked, if this moved at all. Nope, I could still pull it out, so let's try putting my 2 in there. Yeah. So I've got a loose 2 and 3. You really got to struggle to get in there, but 2 I can get in there pretty good. Oops. Let's try that once more. Yeah. All right. So this one is set. Something I want to point out, the second error that I made the first time I did this, there's an index mark on this screw. There's also one on this one. These need to point away from the spark plug. I just realized, with the way I had this before, I've been messing with it just now, I had this index mark inside, which means you could put it 180 degrees out of phase. Hopefully you can see inside to that rocker, but it'll touch on both sides. And I had it 180 degrees out of phase. So I'm wondering if that was contributing to any of my issues. So the exhaust is going to be a little looser. So it's 4 thousandths, so I'm going to do a tight 5, loose 4. I'll get that on there so I can just pull it out. Right there. All right, let's see if I can tighten the lock nut without screwing it up. Let's see if that still holds. So, tight 5. Yep, okay, I can still get it out. And how's my 4 feel? Well, it's a loose 4. Where'd that 5 go? Sometimes working with these feeler gauges can get annoying. All right, let's see how tough it is to get the 5 in. So it was a loose 4, but oh yeah, you gotta really fight the 5. You can get it in there. Okay, so that's a real tight 5. That's where I want to be. So we've now adjusted the valves on the left cylinder. We could put our tappet covers back on, 17mm wrench to tighten those up, and we'll go do the other side. In order to do that, gonna have to fight with this thing again, probably find a whole new clever way to keep it on the T mark, the top mark of the compression stroke for the right side cylinders. So we'll get that set. I'll figure out, it's gonna take me a while to figure this part out, but we'll get it. So now we're gonna be setting the right side cylinders, and we need to get the T mark to our index mark on the top of the compression stroke. And I just checked this, and lucky for us, the cam or the rotor isn't going to want to spin at that spot. So, okay, I can feel I'm building. If you heard that, I'm building pressure on the right cylinder. So I want to get that T right to the index mark. And lucky for us this time, on this stroke, let's see, it actually stays in place. So I don't have to jerry-rig something up. Good, let's go do the clearances on that side. Same thing on the right side cylinders. Take the cover off. There's a lot less going on under here because it doesn't have the whole set of points and everything. We're gonna do a tight 3 because we're looking for 2000s on the intake, and a tight 5 on the exhaust because we're looking for 4000s on the exhaust. So exact same as the left side. Go in with our feeler gauge, adjust, take the lock nut out, move the screw around. Oh my gosh, again, look at that. Index mark is pointing to the inside. It is a good thing I am coming here because I need to loosen that up, and I need this to be on this side. You can see I had it 180 degrees out of phase. So I need that index mark pointing away. I'm gonna get those done, and then our valves will be at the right clearances, and then we can actually get to the points timing with the timing light. All right, so now we've gotten to the trickiest part of this entire process, the most infuriating part of this entire process. You really gotta channel your inner zen in the art of motorcycle maintenance. Granted, he was working on a 305. We're looking at a CB350, CL350, but same idea. So we've got the points plate cover off, and what we're going to be doing is setting the time at which, the exact time at which the spark plug will be detonating. And we want that to match up exactly, because we're going to be looking at the left cylinder first, exactly when we get to left fire on the top of the compression stroke. So what we've got here is the left point and the right point. And how we're going to be doing this is we're going to be using a 3mm wrench, or a 3mm Allen, a flathead screwdriver, and an indicator light. And you can pick up one of these indicator lights at Harbor Freight for like $3. So right now we've got the terminal on the indicator light hooked up to the left point. So we just hooked it on the bottom of the nut right there. If we spin the rotor around, we'll see that the points, let's see if I can find a place where, there we go. The points will open and close based on the fact that there's this eccentric cam that's going to move these, not quite like spring-like, but you can see we're closing up on that left one now, and then actually the light turned off because we closed that circuit. So we're going to find the top of the compression stroke. Let's put you right there. find the top of the compression stroke, and then we're going to set the left timing. Okay, so I can hear it now. We're coming to the top. And we want to get the left fire to be the exact moment that this light turns on and off. So let's turn that down a little bit so I can see a little better. And let's see when that light is going to turn on and off. See how it just turned on? Now off. On, off. So where is that point? Now we had just changed up all of the cam chain tension and the valve clearances. Those two things impact when this ignition timing is going to turn on and off. So even if it was correct before, because we changed those two things previously, we have to reset the timing on this. I'll show you when this is coming on and off. Let's see if we can get the light in this shot at the same time. On, off, on, off. So it's right there. See how we are not quite at left fire. We're actually closer to LT. We're actually closer. It's right there. So we need to bring it here. That's when we want that light to change, not here. So how we're going to do that is we're going to loosen up this 3mm bolt and that 3mm bolt, and we're going to use these little notches here to actually move this point around, and then we'll get the light to turn on and off at the exact time we want it on the left fire. And unfortunately, this is just, it's just a bunch of trial and error until you get this thing right. I hate to say it, but that's kind of how it is. So I'll set this up in the camera in a different position, and might fast forward through this part because it's probably going to take me about 15 times to get it correct. That's why I think this is the most infuriating part about this. But we're going to get it, and then we're going to be done. There we go. All right, let's do that. Okay, so if I didn't mention it before, we actually have to have the ignition on so that we're actually sending power to the bike. Or not ignition on, but you need power to the bike. Okay, so lefty loop. God, electricity always scares me. Lefty loosey, Matt, you gotta remember that. Okay, so we loosen those up a bit. We can get our screwdriver in here and actually change this. Oh, I'm not even close to the spot where I want it. I want to get it to left fire. Alright, so I'm going to hold that with my left hand. I'm holding the rotor right on the left fire spot. And what I want to do is move this around. See that right there? See how I'm getting that? There's a spot where I could tighten those nuts down. And that's where I want to tighten those Allens down. And if you have a friend, this is the exact time you want to recruit them, because they could tighten that. I need a third hand. Shit. I need to figure out a way to tie the rotor to left fire, and then I can set this. Because I need to tighten it exactly right there, and I can't do it because my hands are all taken up. Okay, round two. I found a way using the shifter knob to get it lined up on left fire right on the index mark. We're going to see if I can move this around just to the spot where that light turns on, and I see it. There it is. We want to tighten it right on that spot. So I'm going to get the bottom one first. And there's just a bunch of variables, moving variables when you do this, so just frustrating. Basically just a feather touch will move it back and forth. So I'm barely breathing on it, and that's where it's changing. So now the tough part, we're going to try to tighten that top one without throwing off this whole thing. Let's see. This will be the first attempt. There's probably going to be several more attempts after this. But let's see how close we are. So, we want it to go off exactly when we're at left fire. Okay. Let's see where we're at. I'm a little blind by this thing. Okay, grab my 14 and bring it back. Oh! Alright, so see, right there, on, off, on, off. Oh, wait a second. That might be it. On, off. On. On. Off, right there. Oh, that's it. On, off, right there. That's where we want it. I think I just got lucky as hell. Because the first time I did it, it took about 15 tries. That's it. Now we got to switch it, do the other side, and instead of using the left fire, we're going to use the right fire. And that'll be it. So it's the exact same process, except instead we're going to move this alligator clip onto this point, the right side point. We will spin the motor over. We'll spin the rotor until we get to the fire on the right side cylinder. Set it the exact same way. And I'm pretty sure that that is how you set the cam chain tension, the valve clearance, and the ignition timing on a Honda CL350. I'm glad I did this because, as I mentioned, my index marks on 2 of my 4 valve, the valve tappets were incorrectly set. So I don't know how that was affecting the bike, but I gotta imagine it had something pretty serious to do with it. So if you stayed along this long, I appreciate you watching. Thanks. All right, and just for posterity, I've been adjusting the right one. Okay, those two. Here's our spot. All right, so we can watch. We'll see when it turns on and off. So right there. So right there is our spot. What do we see? Haha! Fire. That's it. Boom.